Carolina People's going Southern style with Diane DeVaughn Stokes. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at Myrtle Square Mall. We're at the office of the Myrtle Beach Herald-Star, a locally owned and operated weekly newspaper. We're focused on the carousel horses on parade and the painting of the carousel horses, which began here at the mall yesterday. And we're visiting with Diane DeVaughn Stokes, the vice chair of Myrtle Beach's Cultural Arts Advisory Committee and the host of Southern Style on Time Warner Cable since 1985.
I am telling you, I'm growing old here in Myrtle Beach, but loving every second of it.
Unbelievable, Diane. And the excitement today, obviously, to focus on what Harry and Diane Moscow McKenzie talked about yesterday, the carousel horses on parade, but to think about your life and really bringing the PD and the Strand together, to think about your 11 years broadcasting career in the PD, and then obviously expanding down to almost 2 decades on air in Myrtle Beach.
Well, you know what, Greg? Of course, Florence is my home. Of course, I went to high school and college at Francis Marion and began my broadcasting career in Florence. And my parents are still there, so Florence is home. Anytime someone says to me, well, where's home? Even though I might have been born in New Jersey, I certainly say Florence is home because most of my growing up was there.
Mm-hmm. And your first job in broadcasting was there?
Absolutely. My first job in broadcasting happened because of my dear friend Doug Williams, who I love and adore to this day. I call him Daddy Doug. But Doug got me started in broadcasting. While I was in college, I met Doug Williams at a Civitan Club one night when he was receiving an outstanding honor for being a Broadcaster of the Year in our community. And the Civitan Club was honoring him that night. At the same time, I was the local president of the college Civitan Club. And Doug and I met and hit it off, and he said to me, you know, when you finish school, you need to come over and help me out with my show. And needless to say, I did. I was majoring in English and journalism, though, to write. I wanted to be a writer. I never really thought of a career in broadcasting because back then, in '73, that wasn't the sort of thing you pursued in Florence, South Carolina. So I majored in journalism to write. But Doug saw this talent in me and snatched me up and took me out to the local TV station and made sure that I was doing television commercials and voiceovers and went to work with him on WOLS radio. And he taught me everything I know about live on the air.
Yes, Diane. So went on live in 1973, not to date you, but to think about that, and then on BTW as well.
Absolutely. WBTW was the only television station in town at the time, and so I went out immediately in '73 and started doing television commercials. Freelanced with WBTW for a number of years, did a ton of telethons for muscular dystrophy, March of Dimes, all with my buddy Doug Williams. We had a wonderful career together for 7.5 years, and he did teach me everything about live radio. As most people may know, WOLS was the radio station was on Dargan Street in Florence, but the radio show, the holiday show, was live from the Holiday Inn downtown Florence. And it was at that time that people would just walk in and sit down and talk. So, you know, you didn't have a producer like you're lucky enough to have Loretta. We would just have people walk in, sit down, and say, I'm here today to talk about what the Kiwanis Club is doing, or I'm a politician and I'm running for office. So I really got broken into in a very easy way. Now when I tape, that's a piece of cake after doing everything live. Right,
right. Diane, you know, I sit here and think, if you went to school for journalism to write, did you ever do any of it?
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. In college, I was the editor of the college paper, and actually I was an editor of the high school newspaper, so I really did write quite a bit. I did write for the Florence Times, which was a weekly paper, also while I was in college and right out of college. I still write, believe it or not, because in my work, I write television commercials all the time. As you know, my husband and I own Stages Video Productions here in Myrtle Beach, so I write television commercials. I write marketing videos. So I have written quite a bit. It was a wonderful background for me. As I've always said, you know, God was in charge of the whole thing anyway. I just kind of, you know, my career has kind of just was really planned all along, and I didn't realize it.
Right, and starting that career so early on, you know, when you think oftentimes with a guest, what was your first childhood job? Would that be your actual broadcast live career starting in 73, your first? I mean, that was obviously coming out of school.
I like to say that my first job, I like to tell people that my first job ever, I was the nut girl at the Sears candy department in downtown Florence. Now, go figure, the nut girl, of course.
Yes.
So, you know, I used to roast nuts and cashews and those sorts of things, and then I would go around giving out these nuts in the store. Can you believe it? So that was my first job, and I'm really proud to tell you that's where I began.
Yeah.
But my first broadcasting career truly was with WOLS Radio and the dear Doug Williams.
That's wonderful. Well, a big salute to Doug Williams, very definitely. Obviously, one of your big loves is the stage. Can you remember the first time you went on stage, Diane?
You know, Greg, if my mother was sitting here, she would tell you that I was always on stage. I remember singing and talking into the bottom of a hairbrush. I turned the hairbrush upside down, and as a kid, I would walk around the house performing all the time. You know, I've always kind of been a ham, and in high school and college, I was always on stage doing something. That was never a fear factor for me. You know, so many times people would be like, oh, I can't do this, or I don't want to stand up and be the first person to do the book report, but I was always the person who never minded doing that. So all through high school and college, I was always kind of doing the performance venues. However, my really first theatrical endeavor was at the Florence Little Theater in 1978. I was Linda Lowe in Flower Drum Song. I enjoy being a girl, and it was a really fun role. Linda Lowe is a Oriental, kind of a wild character. I got to appear in a totally nude leotard from top to bottom on the stage of the Florence Little Theater. And it was a very tough show, but I loved it. It was absolutely a wonderful musical and a great experience for me, but Linda Lowe was a stripper.
And we segue into 25 years later on stage, even as recent as 10 days ago. I think
Absolutely. I just finished Ado Annie. I like to say that I was the oldest Ado Annie in the history of Broadway, but here in the community I finally had a chance to do a role that I'd always wanted to do, Greg. When I was 10 years old, my parents took me to a theater, and I had a chance to see Oklahoma. And I remember even being at 10 years old saying, I don't want to be Laurie, the beautiful singer. I wanted to be Ado Annie, because she was the silly singer. She had two incredible songs, but was kissing every man in the show and throwing herself at everybody. And it was a lifelong dream to do Ado Annie, and I had a ball doing it. Chuck was also in the show, my wonderful husband, and he was Judd. And it was the weirdest thing, Greg, because as many shows as we have done together, it was the first time ever we had no lines together and no scenes together. And that was really weird, being in a show with Chuck, rehearsing night after night, but not doing anything with him.
That must have been.
But I love theater, and it's a wonderful, wonderful venue, even here in our community, to be involved in community theater and to do something you love in a community you chose to be.
Sure, very definitely. When you get back to the Florence area, do you ever go to the Florence Little Theater?
Absolutely. It doesn't get much better anywhere than the Florence Little Theater, anywhere in the country. Florence Little Theater is right up there with the very best community theaters, and I have had a chance to return. Not as often as I would like, because I spend so much time in Horry County. However, here in the area, I do pursue the other theaters as well. I'm very active. I'm the vice president for Conway's Theater of the Republic. However, I love going to all the shows. I visit the Grand Strand Senior Center and their shows, the Swamp Fox Players at the Strand Theater in Georgetown. So Chuck and I enjoy going to theater as much as we enjoy performing on stage.
So vice president of the Theater of the Republic, vice chair to an incredible chair, Harry
Love. I add the vice
Love.
to so many things.
We'll get into that. Stripper on stage in 1978, and then that's a heck of a lot of hats to wear, Diane.
Well, you know, you have to. It's like the motto of South Carolina, you know, it's your life, fill it up, and that's kind of what I feel. Right.
Diane, when did you first begin producing your own daily talk show?
Actually, I started producing television talk shows in 1981. When WBTW first went on the air in Florence, I was hired. It was the most difficult career decision I ever made, because I didn't want to leave Doug Williams on the holiday show. However, that was not just a full-time job for me. It was a part-time job. I was also the director of sales for Holiday Inns in Florence, and that was another job. So I had to make a decision to leave both of those jobs. I took a cut in pay, big time, to go to work in broadcasting. full-time, but I knew that it was something I really always wanted to do. So when WBTW went on the air, I hosted and produced PD People for them for 3 years. And it was a wonderful opportunity to do live television with a news station in the area and help create a niche for them. I continued to do that show for 3 years, and then at some point the general manager decided they really didn't want to support that sort of public affairs program. Tried to move me into doing the news, and I really left television in Florence on that principle. I did not want to do the news. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I just couldn't possibly be forced to do 6 and 11 when that wasn't my thing. I admire people who want to do that, but I like to do this sort of thing like you do. As a matter of fact, this is incredibly weird for me, Greg Everett, to sit in this chair and let you interview me. I feel like Ted Koppel interviews Oprah here. You know, this is really, this is weird.
Well, this is our leader on air, so surely following in your footsteps, Diane. And to think of your launch there in '81 on WPDE, and to have PD People, and to think of the decision for us to name this show Carolina People. Obviously, there was a thought at one point, since the bulk of our viewers are in the PD, to think of PD People following in your vein, and then Palmetto People. And I think it was my mother who reminded me that a heck of a lot of our viewers are in southeastern North Carolina, and the name Carolina,
it's a perfect
when
name.
you're in either state, obviously connotes either North Carolina or South Carolina.
And and Greg, you're great for this, because for your viewers don't know this, but I know Greg personally. We go to church together, and we are great friends, and you care about people. You're not just doing this because it's a job for you, and so I'm really proud of your efforts to give people a public forum like this.
Diane, that's very kind. What do you enjoy most about being on television, Diane?
The greatest thing for me about being on television is giving our viewers an opportunity to say the things that they need to say. So many of the not-for-profit organizations in all of our communities, in all of your coverage area, they don't have the money to always advertise and run an ad in the newspapers or to spend money buying a television ad. So being able to give them the opportunity to get the word out to the public is the greatest reward for me. I'm so grateful right now to Time Warner Cable, who's believed in our program. I just started my 19th year of doing Southern Style, and Time Warner has been a wonderful support to the community in giving people a forum, much like Fox has given your viewers. This is a great opportunity for not-for-profit organizations to get the publicity they deserve.
If there was a not-for-profit organization that wanted to have that opportunity to get on Southern Style, Diane, can you tell the viewers real quick when that airs? And
for folks in Horry, Georgetown, and Williamsburg County, you can see Southern Style mornings at 10 and nightly at 7:30 on Time Warner, Channel 5. We like to say Channel 5 in Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach and Conway. And anything south of the airbase is Channel 17. But it's Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. in its 19th year.
That is amazing, Diane. And surely that 7:30 time period is so big, leading right into prime time, having a great access slot there.
Absolutely.
And twice a day. That's fantastic.
And it's so rewarding when you run into people. I know that you feel the same way when you run into people and they say, you know, we have dinner watching you, or we have breakfast watching you. And you know, it's just, it's a real joy. You have to realize that this is not big television business in our community. We are truly in a community that's not big broadcast focus, and so it's really just another job. I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to do it.
And then another very big job in your life is as president of Stages Video Production, which you founded with your husband.
Absolutely. Chuck and I met at Channel 15 back in 1982 and fell in love on the job, and when we got married, we moved to the Myrtle Beach area and started a new life here, and that, of course, has been 19 years as well. We started our business several years into living in Myrtle Beach because we knew that we were both in broadcasting, and we felt that we really needed to have our own shtick. And so Stages Video was born in 1989. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to work together. I write the scripts. I work with all the clients up front on marketing videos and television commercials, and Chuck shoots and edits. And it's great because we don't step on each other's toes. I have my niche, he has his. We met working together. We still work together, and fortunately, we adore being around each other 48 hours a day.
It is amazing. It is amazing. You and Chuck make such a great team. To think of being on stage together, to think about being at home together, and to think about being at work together. That's a fantastic commitment. One big part of y'all's life over the last 15 years or so, the National Shag Dance Championships, of which you all have been recording and being involved in.
Right. Just last weekend, I hosted, once again, the National Shag Dance Championships, which was held at the Attic at the Pavilion. It's a wonderful event that is actually in its 20th year. Barry Thigpen began the event as a kind of a Can-Am attraction for the community, but it has grown tremendously. Chuck is on the National Shag Dance Committee. I MC it. We produce a video featuring all of the shaggers, the best shaggers in the country. And it's amazing, Greg, how this dance has progressed and how it has tremendously grown. I mean, what used to be an 8-count step with a few little minor belly rolls has now grown into a flamboyant dance that is really well respected throughout the world. And it's amazing. We send shag tapes to Germany and England and Italy, and people order these tapes from all over. But it is a fabulous event that's held the second weekend of March every year here in the Myrtle Beach community. But it's truly a wonderful committee who has supported this endeavor and given great focus to our state dance.
Great, absolutely. It brings a lot of great publicity to the area and surely to shag dancing. Diane, obviously much of our focus today and yesterday and all week is carousel horses. And wanted to see if we could take a break real quick and come back and focus on carousel horses.
We could take a break and then horse around.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
Listen to that. We're talking to a pro, Diane DeVaughn Stokes, wonderful at what she does. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. The PD and the Strand have come together again. We're visiting with Diane DeVaughn Stokes, and we're talking about Carousel Horses on Parade.
Absolutely, a project very dear to my heart.
Oh, Diane, I know it. Well, you know, I tried to find a horse tie today. I had some trouble. Instead, a friend had picked me up this at Brook Green Gardens, and so butterflies were going to work, but...
They're appropriate because you are a butterfly. You have come out of your cocoon as a wonderful talk show host who's now flying by the seat of your pants. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
You got it.
I'm teasing you, Greg.
You saw me stressing yesterday, just thinking, exciting. Yesterday, Diane Moscow McKenzie and Harry Lovin. Obviously, Harry, so active as chairman of the Cultural Arts Advisory Committee and thinking about you all coming up with the idea of the Carousel Horses on Parade. How did that come about, Diane?
Well, first of all, I have to say, working with Harry Love is just the best because I like to say that Harry, for every 10 steps he takes, I have to take 25 to keep up with him. Harry eats, sleeps, and breathes the Carousel Horses on Parade project. But I'm so glad he does, because I have 2 jobs, and it's difficult to give as much time as Harry has. Harry, of course, is what we have always called, for the past 20 years in this community, we have called Harry the godfather of the arts. There's not an aspect of the arts he has not been involved in, from the Art Museum to the Waccamaw Arts and Crafts Guild. He was very modest on your show yesterday. He is a very well-respected artist. His paintings hang all over the Pine Lakes Country Club, and frankly, he's got paintings all over the world. But he is near and dear to all of us. He was the one who went to City Council and said to the Myrtle Beach City Council, we need a facility for local arts groups. I mean, we do have many local theater groups that have no home, no venue. We have ballet companies performing in church halls. For a community the size of the Myrtle Beach area and a place that has 14 million visitors a year, it is shameful that we do not have a cultural arts center. Harry saw the need. He went to council and said, here's a building, buy it. Thank goodness they did. That was 3 years ago. The building, as I like to say, has been sitting naked for 3 years with nothing in it. So Harry was very instrumental in encouraging the council to form a Cultural Arts Advisory Committee of which to get this project going. It's an incredibly dedicated committee. This project has been far more time-consuming and much bigger than any of us ever expected. And, of course, as everyone knows, when you're dealing with political entities and trying to make everybody happy, it's always a little bit slower in moving forward than it could be. However, we have hundreds of volunteers working behind the scenes to make this happen. Our Carousel Horse Project, which of course the artists are painting horses right now at Myrtle Square Mall, these horses will then of course go to different business locations in June, July, and August, and they'll be on public display, kind of like a public art display. Greg and Carolina People and Fox Television have a horse that will be out in front of the Pepper Gettings Recreation Center on Oak Street. But at the same time, you can drive down Oak Street and you'll see a horse in front of several of the banks. You'll see a horse in front of Time Warner Cable. You'll see horses all over the place because many people have believed in the project and have sponsored the horses for $5,000. Once September rolls around, these horses will then be auctioned off to the public, to the highest bidders. The community can come together and say, oh, I just fell in love with the horse that Carolina people sponsored and I want to buy it. So you need to be here on September 20th because we're going to have a huge auction, and all of these horses will then be auctioned off with all of the proceeds, of course, going to the renovation of the Rivoli Theater.
So you will have sold them to corporate sponsors, and they will actually go on display. Will the first time of display be the Sun Fun Parade on May 31st, or actually being created here at Myrtle Square Mall?
I firmly believe that they're on display right now. People can come to the mall and see more than half of our horses. Some folks, some of the artists took their horses home to their garages. It was a little more convenient for them to paint them there. But the majority of horses over 30 will be painted at Myrtle Square Mall. I think it'll be a wonderful opportunity for young people and, well, people of all ages, frankly, but a lot of young people who would like to pursue art as a career to come to the mall and watch artists at work. You can come in today and maybe watch the saddle being painted, whereas next week you'll see the horses behind being painted. So it's one of those things that you'll be able to follow the progress. May 31st, the horses will make their debut in the Sun Fun Parade, and we're quite excited about that because that will be the first time everyone will see all the horses parade down the route. Then they will go to their destinations, much like your horse at that point will then go to Pepper Gettings Recreation Center, where it will remain for 3 months. And people will be able to come by and visit with it. There will be a voting of People's Choice Award during the summer months. And the horse that gets the final amount, the biggest amount of votes, will actually never be auctioned at public auction. One horse will remain the property of the Rivoli Theater, just as all of the paintings, the original paintings of the horses, the artists had to submit paintings, Greg, before we actually chose them, before sponsors chose them. These artists had painted some beautiful renderings, and they will hang at the Rivoli Theater. So our whole theme of the Cultural Arts Center, when it opens, will be the horse project.
Diane, what a great idea to get folks interested in wanting to have their horse as the determined horse that will remain at the Rivoli Theater. How exciting. I mean, I'm sure you'll have lots of businesses in town encouraging their patrons to go out and vote on, if it's a bank, for instance. I'm sure there's a number of banks that have wrapped around.
Absolutely.
To think about one of those banks encouraging all their patrons to support, to go around, obviously, and see all the horses, but to come back and take a look at theirs to vote it up.
No doubt. And you know, Greg, it's really been exciting because there have been many businesses when Harry and I would call on them who really could not afford the $5,000. But almost all of them made some sort of contribution. They would say to us, well, you know, we really believe in this project. We can't give you $5,000, but we'll write a check for $300, or we'll write a check for $500. We had many businesses say to us, we'll donate food for the auction. We'll do this. I mean, no one walked away and said, can't help you, don't care. Everyone knows that the Myrtle Beach community needs a cultural arts center. Another thing, Greg, I find that this facility will be incredibly exciting to the cultural aspect for families. For instance, every weekend you'll know to go downtown Myrtle Beach to the pavilion area because you're going to see something or hear something going on there. Maybe we would have a festival to salute the Spanish-speaking people in our community, maybe a Mexican festival. Maybe we would have some sort of youth day. Everything will be cultural and artistic. Every weekend we should have something happening at the Rivoli Theater in downtown Myrtle Beach. We call it, Greg, the Marty District, Myrtle Art Initiative, Marty. And that whole district where the theater is now, right behind the Pavilion parking garage, will be the home of much cultural activity. Even
before the Rivoli is completed, some of the fundraising efforts after September 20, after the 20th of September when the horses are bid off, and eBay is being utilized as one of the primary vehicles around the world to bid on these horses.
Through our research, we have found, Greg, that other communities that did the Critter Project, they have taken this project to eBay and made a tremendous amount of money. We're very fortunate that the carousel horse, which of course the critter we chose, is a collectible. I mean, people all over the world collect carousel horses. We understand that between carousel horses and lighthouses, they're the most popular collectibles. So we feel that there will be people from all over bidding on these carousel horses. So that should help us tremendously. But long after the project is over, We still, of course, will be recruiting monies from the community. We'll be going after matching grants. We're going to be going after naming opportunities where people can name the facility. You know, it could be called the Greg Everett Cultural Arts Center if you wrote the right amount of money, Greg.
Plain hell.
So, you know, you just don't know, you know, or you could name it after Loretta, who's the producer of A Lifetime you're so lucky to have.
Absolutely.
But the fact is, we're going to go after naming opportunities. We can put people's names on all sorts of seats at the theater, box office. I mean, we're going to do all sorts of things to raise the money, not to mention we, of course, will be approaching the city of Myrtle Beach about possibly bonding an amount that we will need to finish off the project.
Diane, we've just got a couple of seconds, but I was wondering if you weren't currently the host of Southern Style, now going almost on 2 decades, what do you think you'd be doing?
If I wasn't here in Myrtle Beach hosting Southern Style, I would probably want to be on the Food Channel doing one of those food shows or home and garden television. That would be right up my aspect. As you know, I've never considered myself a news person, so Good Morning America and all those things would not be my goal. I'd go for HGTV or the Food Channel for sure, absolutely.
You heard it right here, Diane DeVaughn Stokes. Southern Style, almost 20 years now. Catch her on Time Warner Cable here in the city of Myrtle Beach and in North Myrtle Beach on Channel 5, as well as on the South End on Channel 17, 10 a.m. and 7:30, Monday through Friday.
Thanks,
Diane,
Greg.
thanks so much for being
Greg,
with us this
morning.
morning.
Can I just say thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to be back home in Florence, a place that I also love.
Absolutely. Thank you, Diane. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. And the PD and the Strand are back. Diane DeVaughn Stokes supporting Carousel Horses on Parade. Check it out at carouselhorses.net.